Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about 10 things to know about Safavid Empire. So before starting this video, please like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. The Safavid dynasty was one of the most significant ruling dynasties of Iran from 1501 to 1736. The Safavid dynasty had its origin in the Safavid order of Sufism, which was established in the city of Ardabil in the Iranian Azerbaijan region. It was an Iranian dynasty of Kurdish origin, but during their rule they intermarried with Turkoman, Georgian, Circassian, and Pontic Greek dignitaries. From their base in Ardabil, the Safavids established control over parts of Greater Iran, and reasserted the Iranian identity of the region, thus becoming the first native dynasty, since the Sasanian Empire, to establish a national state officially known as Iran. The Safavids ruled from 1501 to 1722, experiencing a brief restoration from 1729 to 1736, and at their height they controlled all of what is now Iran-Azerbaijan Republic, Bahrain, Armenia, eastern Georgia, parts of the North Caucasus, Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan, as well as parts of Turkey, Syria, Pakistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. Despite their demise in 1736, the legacy that they left behind was the revival of Iran, as an economic stronghold between East and West, the establishment of an efficient state and bureaucracy based upon checks and balance, their architectural innovations and their patronage for fine arts. The Safavids have also left their mark down to the present era by spreading Twelver Islam in Iran, as well as major parts of the Caucasus, Anatolia and Mesopotamia. Here are the 10 facts about them. Number 10. The Mongol invasions that began in the 13th century drastically reconfigured the Islamic world. Not only did the invasions bring about the end of the Abbasid Empire and leave the center of Eastern Islamdom fractured, but the arrival of new Turkic peoples and dynasties throughout much of Islamdom shifted the axes of power into the hands of Turkic clans. The Safavi order at Ardabil, however, was distant enough from any political center to remain neutral, allowing the Persian mystics to build a strong following of their own. By the time of Ismail I, the order's sixth head, the Safavis, commanded enough support from the Kazilbash, local Turkmens, and other disaffected heterodox tribes, to enable him to capture Tabriz from the Ak-Koyunlu Turkish, White Sheep and Uzbek Turkmen Confederation. In July 1501, Ismail was enthroned as Shah, although his area of control was initially limited to Azerbaijan. In the next 10 years he subjugated the greater part of Iran and annexed the Iraqi provinces of Baghdad and Mosul. Despite the predominantly Sunni character of this territory, he proclaimed Shi'ism the state religion and enforced its creed and prayers in the mosques of his dominion. Number 9. In August 1514, Ismail was seriously defeated at Chaldiran by his Sunni rival, the Ottoman Sultan Selim I. Thereafter, the continuing struggle against the Sunnis, the Ottomans in the west and the Uzbeks in the northeast cost the Safavids Kurdistan, Diyarbakir and Baghdad, while Tabriz was continuously under threat. Iran weakened appreciably during the reign of Ismail's eldest son Shah Tahmasp I (1524–76), and persistent and unopposed Turkmen forays into the country increased under his incompetent successors. Number 8. In 1588, Abbas I was brought to the throne. Realizing the limits of his military strength, Abbas made peace with the Ottomans on unfavorable terms in 1590, and directed his onslaughts against the Uzbeks. Meeting with little success, Abbas engaged in a major army reform. The strength of the Kazilbash was reduced while the use of firearms was expanded. 3 bodies of troops were formed, all trained and armed in an early modern manner, and paid out of the royal treasury: the Gulams, slaves, the Tofangchis, musketeers, and the Topchis, artillerymen. With his new army, Abbas defeated the Turks in 1603, forcing them to relinquish all the territory they had seized and captured Baghdad. He also expelled, 1602–1622, the Portuguese traders who had seized the island of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf early in the 16th century. Number 7. As the Safavid dynasty approached the middle of the 18th century, the last Shahs took less and less interest in foreign and local affairs and retreated to the interior life of the palace. This left room for invasion by outside enemies, which is exactly what happened in 1722, when the Afghan army besieged the capital of Isfahan. Even after their decline, the Safavids left an influential legacy with far-reaching implications for Iranian art, religion and culture. The Safavids established an artistic identity that resonated with the dynasties that came after. For instance, the Qajar dynasty, 1789–1925, the first major dynasty to succeed the Safavids, continued the tradition of Safavid book arts, painting and architecture. Number 6. The Safavid family was a literate family from its early origin. There are extant Tati and Persian poetry from Sheikh Safi ad-Din Ardabili, as well as extant Persian poetry from Sheikh Sadr ad-Din. Most of the extant poetry of Shah Ismail I is in Azerbaijani pen name of Katai. Sam Mirza, the son of Shah Ismail, as well, as some later authors assert that Ismail composed poems both in Turkish and Persian, but only a few specimens of his Persian verse have survived. A collection of his poems in Azeri were published as a divan. Shah Tahmasp, who has composed poetry in Persian, was also a painter, while Shah Abbas II was known as a poet writing Azerbaijani verses. Sam Mirza, the son of Ismail I, was himself a poet and composed his poetry in Persian. He also compiled an anthology of contemporary poetry. Number 5. The palaces of the Safavid era, such as the Ali Kapı, Royal Gate, and Chehel Sotun 40 columns palaces in Isfahan, are remarkable for their decorative figural frescoes. Murals of women decorate the lower level of the Ali Kapı, hinting at the uppermost level of the palace, the harem, a space reserved for the Shah and his female attendants. The murals of the Chehel Sotun, on the other hand, were painted with group scenes of diplomatic receptions and notable battles. These figural murals are one of the defining and unique features of Safavid architectural decor, and are not found as often in Ottoman or Mughal palaces. Number 4. The Safavids commissioned and built hundreds of monuments during their reign, making them some of the most productive builders in all of Iranian history. The main types of buildings constructed during this time were mosques, palaces, markets, shrines and caravanserai structures used to shelter travelers during long journeys. While the decoration of each of these buildings varied, the structural composition remained much the same, consisting of domes surrounded by 4 iwans, or ivans, rooms, that open on one side to a courtyard often framed by pointed arches. This modular layout could be expanded or contracted, creating both monumental and intimate spaces. Number 3. Royal manuscripts provide a glimpse into the fusion of regional styles used in early Safavid art. The best artists from across the empire traveled to work at the royal workshop in Tabriz, a city in northwestern Iran that was the first capital of the Safavid dynasty. Bayezid, the famed miniaturist from Herat, was commissioned by Shah Ismail to direct this royal workshop. Here Bayezid helped establish the birth of a new Safavid aesthetic, a hybrid of the colorful expressionism and naturalistic rendering of the dynasties that preceded the Safavids. In 1522, the Safavid Royal Library of Shah Tahmasp produced the most exquisitely illustrated Shahnameh of all time, now known as the Shahnameh of Shah Tahmasp. Royal manuscripts such as this were highly collaborative enterprises that brought together miniaturists, illuminators, calligraphers, poets, scribes and gold sprinklers. The court of the Gayumas is renowned for its precision of line, and attention to the finest of detail, whether in the rendering of a flowering tree or the sable fur lining the robe of the enthroned king. Number 2. Around the middle of the 16th century, a trend developed for standalone illustrations of popular stories, including the Shahnameh but encompassing other folkloric literature. This had to do with a decline in the patronage of large-scale manuscripts, as well as the rise of a market outside of the royal workshop. Safavid artists sold single sheets and painted miniatures at markets and coffee houses. Whereas manuscripts' handmade books included detailed landscapes, margin illustration, background figures and calligraphic text, single folio paintings featured only the most important and iconic scene from the story, such as a young lady reclining after a bath. Rather than confined within the binding of books, individual miniatures were mobile. Royal elites collaged them into maraca, albums in which miniatures from different sources were collected together. Maraca translates to that which has been patched together. Every maraca album was entirely different from the next, and they brought together excerpts from Persian poetry, calligraphic scripts, miniature paintings and design motifs. Number 1. Silk was akin to gold in this era, and Safavid silk was renowned for both the high quality of its raw silk, as well as the exquisite designs of their embroidered textiles. Europeans imported some of the highest volumes of Safavid textiles. For this reason, many silks used floral and vegetal motifs that appealed to both Persian and foreign markets. The most popular of these themes was the Persian gol bol bol, the rose and the nightingale. The rose and nightingale motif was both a literary and decorative theme in Persian culture, symbolizing earthly and spiritual love. In its beauty and perfection, the rose represented the beloved, though its thorns also warned of love's cruelty, while the doting nightingale, lost in song of longing and devotion, represented the lover. In mystical Islamic poetry, the thirst of the nightingale for the rose was also a metaphor for the soul's yearning for its union with God. Textiles often included scenes from gardens of paradise. When placed on the floor of palaces and mosques, depictions of verdant florals suggested one was in fact within a garden. What do you think of this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.